20 years living in San Francisco, 6 different neighborhoods, and if I had to start all over again with a budget and a blank map, I would not pick Noe Valley again. I would not pick Pacific Heights again. I wouldn't pick any of the obvious ones. Here's where I would actually buy in San Francisco in 2026. Before we get into it, I want to be clear about something. These are not the cheap neighborhoods. This isn't a video about where to find a deal. San Francisco is not really known for doing real estate deals. What this is a video about where your money actually works, where you can get a real neighborhood that just kind of fits who you are. I've helped people buy and sell all over San Francisco, but more importantly, I've been a resident of San Francisco since 1995. I've bought in the city, I've rented in the city, I've watched neighborhoods change, get discovered, and get expensive. These 5 neighborhoods I'm about to show you are the ones I keep coming back to when someone asks me, where would you actually want to live? These are the honest answers. One of these neighborhoods is where I live right now. A few are neighborhoods I haven't lived in but I know really well, and one is a neighborhood I am in the process of moving to next. They are all very different from each other. Most people move to San Francisco hear the Mission and picture Mission Street on a Saturday night, crowded, loud, great food and bars, but it can be a difficult neighborhood to raise a family in or come home after a long week for some people. Mission Dolores is its own neighborhood, completely separate from the Mission District. It's quieter and more residential. A lot of people moving to San Francisco don't really know it's even a thing. It's named after the Mission Dolores Basilica, one of the oldest buildings in the city. It sits right where several neighborhoods meet, but it doesn't really belong to any of them, and that's kind of what makes it special. I actually live here right now. I came back to it after living in New York. It's one of the most walkable spots in the city. Okay, so when you live here, you're in one of the best connected parts of the city. You've got BART running up and down Mission Street. The J Church Muni line runs on the other end of the neighborhood. And if you're driving to the peninsula, Highway 101 is easily accessible without crossing through the whole city. For a tech worker community to Soma or the financial district, this is genuinely one of the easiest places to use mass transit. Valencia Street is the main drag for dining and nightlife and a little bit of shopping. And that's actually the border of the neighborhood, running from Valencia to Church Street. Sometimes I walk down Valencia and it feels like I'm in New York. I know New Yorkers, I know New York does not compare, but it does have that density and that energy and that mix of people that I only find in New York. It's really hard to find that in these neighborhoods. The Castro is really close to, and it's generally one of the best neighborhoods in the city. But being an elder gay like myself, I find more energy on Valencia Street with less intensity. And then there's Dolores Park. I don't know how to explain Dolores Park to someone who hasn't been here on a Sunday afternoon. It's the great equalizer of San Francisco, one of the most genuinely happy places in the city. You bring a blanket, you meet your friends, you people watch, you feel the sun on your skin. The locals call the southwest corner the man shelf. Let's just say the dress code is minimal. It's joyful and completely unbothered. Mission Dolores is filled with classic San Francisco Victorians and Edwardians, those full floor units that define the city's architectural identity. Most buyers here are getting a flat, usually 2 or 3 bedrooms, high ceilings, bay windows, original details. You also find condos and converted buildings, and we have some TICs here as well. Single family homes exist, but they're on the rare side. So what does it actually cost? Mission Dolores is mostly a condo market, and honestly, that's good news for buyers because it keeps the neighborhood median price down. But the average per square foot is $1,085 last year, and now it's trending up, of course, like all the neighborhoods will be. So I'm only going to say that once, but these are last year's numbers. If you compare it to Noe Valley is $1,150 per square foot. Same Victorian architecture, but I would say we have better walkability here and a better park. Single family homes, like I said, they come up, and when they do, they tend to sell close to the Noe Valley, Eureka Valley pricing with some adjustments for amenities. So you're a good fit for Mission Dolores if you want to be in the middle of everything. You want walkable, you want vibrant, you want culturally alive, but you don't want the noise and chaos of the Mission proper. It's great for young professionals, couples without kids, or young kids, And honestly, anyone who values being able to walk out their door and have a full city life within 5 minutes. It's probably not for you if you want a yard and quiet suburban streets. This is urban San Francisco at its most livable. If that sounds like you and you're related to San Francisco, that's exactly the conversation I have every week. Reach out, I'm easy to find. Okay, so I've lived in 6 neighborhoods, as I said, and this has been my favorite. There's something about the combination of the park, the architecture, the street life, and the fact that it still feels like a neighborhood, not just a scene. When I'm in Dolores Park on a Sunday with friends and the fog starts to roll in the late afternoon, telling us it's time to pack up, that's the version of San Francisco that I moved back here for. That's neighborhood 1. But here's what I want you to hold on to as we go through this list. The last neighborhood that I talk about has almost none of what Mission Dolores has. And I'd argue it's the better place for me right now. Keep that in mind. All right, next neighborhood, same price range as Noe Valley, half the foot traffic, and a better park. Cole Valley is one of those neighborhoods that San Franciscans who know it are almost protective about it. It's small, genuinely a village, just a few blocks of commercial street, surrounded by residential. It's tucked between the Haight, Inner Sunset, and the edge of Golden Gate Park. You could easily drive right by it and not know it, which I admit as a newcomer I probably did many times in the 90s. The thing about Cole Valley, it has a lot of what you find in Noe Valley. The neighborhood feel, the brunch spots, the young families, the safety. Unpopular opinion, Cole Valley is actually better than Noe Valley. Same price, better park, and here's the real tell. The people who live in Cole Valley don't leave. Low turnover is one of the strongest signs that a neighborhood actually delivers on its promise. Cole Valley has some of the lowest turnover on the west side of the city. When people find it, they stay. The N Judah runs right through here and goes downtown in about 25 minutes. If you're driving to the peninsula, it's not the fastest commute on the list, that's true. But most people who live here say it is worth it. And for remote workers, this might be the best neighborhood in San Francisco to work from. I've been going to Zazie for brunch for years, again, since the 90s. It's a French bistro on Cole Street that's been there forever. Beautiful back patio, never a tourist trap or anything. That's Cole Valley in a nutshell. The good things here have staying power. There's also a Cole Hardware, a bookstore, a market, small because it's small, and that's entirely the point. You can always walk to Haight Street or the Inner Sunset for more, and then you have Golden Gate Park, essentially in the backyard. The Panhandle, Buena Vista Park. It's an embarrassment of green space. Again, here you're gonna get Victorians and Edwardians, but you're gonna have early 20th century craftsman style homes. Condos and flats are also really common. The building stock is well maintained on average. This is a neighborhood people tend to stay in and take care of. Okay, so what does this actually cost? Cole Valley is not cheap. It sits right in that same price range as Noe Valley. Median condo is $1.6 million at just over $1,200 per square foot over the last 12 months. Noe condos are at $1,555, essentially same market. Single family median in Cole Valley is $3.5 million, right in line with Noe Valley and Eureka Valley. What Cole Valley gives you for that price is Golden Gate Park 2 blocks away, a quieter commercial strip, and a neighborhood that's more central, a little cooler, and a harder commute than Noe. Cole Valley is ideal for people who want a quiet, walkable, genuinely neighborhoody experience in San Francisco without sacrificing access to culture and parks. It's particularly strong for families with young children, though I have friends with teenagers there, remote workers, and anyone who prioritizes quality of life over nightlife and urban density. If you need quick freeway access or want the energy of a more active commercial corridor, this is gonna feel a little sleepy. You know, the thing that strikes me every time I'm on Cole Street is how unhurried everything is. Nobody is performing there. People are just living their life. In a city that, is very expensive, that is kind of a rare thing to find. If you're finding this useful, subscribe. I put out San Francisco content every week, and I try to make it the kind of content I would have actually wanted when I was trying to figure the city out. Okay, so for our next neighborhood, we are changing things up and we're going to the east side of the city. Potrero Hill is one of those neighborhoods that people who don't know San Francisco will tend to skip entirely. It's not on the tourist map. It doesn't have a famous street or a landmark most people can name. And people who do know San Francisco often overlook it because it sits between the Mission and a more industrial waterfront, and the approach from most directions doesn't give you the best first impression. It's true. But that's a mistake. Get up on that hill itself and you'll immediately understand why people who live here never want to leave. In terms of transit, you're mostly dependent on buses unless you drive. That said, you're generally close to SoMa, the Mission, and the 101 freeway. For tech workers and companies in SoMa or the Design District, this can actually be one of the shorter commutes in the city. And for peninsula commuting via 101, you're very well positioned. The views from the top of Potrero Hill are genuinely spectacular. On a clear day, you're going to see the bay, the East Bay Hills, Caltrain below you, the skyline to the north. Potrero Hill is one of the sunniest neighborhoods in San Francisco. It's one of the most reliably clear spots in the city because the hill rises above the fog layer that's settling over the other neighborhoods. When the sunset is soaked in and the Castro is a little gray, Potrero is often sitting in full sun. If weather matters to you, and it's understandable, this is a quality of life thing for people, Potrero Hill really deserves some serious attention. Okay, here, along with the Victorian and Edwardian homes, you've got 20th century cottages and some newer construction, including a lot of condo developments near the base of the hill. Single family homes are more available here than in Mission, Dolores, and Coal Valley, but again, they're not that common, and when they come up, it's competitive. The hillside lots often come with kind of outdoor space that's nearly impossible to find at this price in the central San Francisco. So, what does this actually cost? Potrero Hill is where the data gets a little interesting. The median single family is $1.7925. Over the last 12 months, and that's $1,128 per square foot. Detached homes with bay views and outdoor space for under $2 million. The condo market here is one of the most active on the list. 79 sales with a median of 1.1 at just over $1,000 per square foot. This is one of the lowest price per square foot figures among the central San Francisco neighborhoods. Here's another thing about Potrero Hill that a lot of people don't see. It's not actually about Potrero Hill itself, it's about what's happening around it. So Potrero sits next to SoMa and the waterfront, where a major life sciences and biotech cluster have been building out. Mission-based build, demanded to Potrero years ago, and it's still happening. Condo sales volume is up 34% over the last 12 months. Demand is growing. Of all 5 of the neighborhoods on this list, Potrero probably has the clearest reason to keep going up. That's not a guarantee, but it is a real factor. Okay, so if you're a tech worker and you're driving to SoMa every day and you've been looking at neighborhoods that feel out of reach, stop what you're doing and take a look at Potrero Hill. Views, outdoor space, the sunniest microclimate on this list, and a price point that still makes sense. So I sold a home in Potrero Hill last year and then got invited to their housewarming. The couple showed me their wedding photo taken in front of the tree in the front of their house in full bloom. Here's the thing, they didn't live there at that time. They lived a block away, and before that, they lived 2 blocks away. This crazy coincidence, or is it? They didn't plan to end up there. The neighborhood kind of found them. And that's, I don't know, kind of touchy-feely of me, but that is the kind of place that I feel like Potrero Hill is. Okay, now we're gonna go way north to a neighborhood that tourists visit constantly and locals treat like the magic secret that they don't want to share. Russian Hill is one of San Francisco's most iconic neighborhoods. Lombard Street is there, the views are extraordinary, the architecture is some of the best in the city, and yet, when I talk to buyers who are seriously evaluating neighborhoods, Russian Hill almost never comes up first. They say Pacific Heights. They say the Marina. Russian Hill is a hidden gem hiding in plain sight. People know the name, but they don't know the neighborhood. And that gap between reputation and reality is where there's a lot of opportunity. Okay, Russian Hill is on the north end of the city, and for mass transit, there are bus lines. The Powell Street cable car also provides a famous, if not always practical, connection downtown. Clearly, you're also close to the financial district. Driving the hills is actually kind of fun in my opinion, but others not so much. Parking though, it's genuinely difficult if you don't have a garage. The neighborhood rewards people who embrace transit, that are willing to walk and can handle some hills. For remote workers, the location is outstanding. Polk Street is sort of the commercial spine, one of the most underrated streets in San Francisco. Independent restaurants, wine bars, coffee shops. It has a neighborhood commercial feel that Valencia has, but with significantly less foot traffic and noise. Russian Hill has some of the best Victorian and Edwardian homes in the city. You've got a great range of condos. You've got pre-war buildings, mid-century, newer construction. There's even co-ops, which is pretty rare in San Francisco. Single-family homes are extremely rare. I think we sold 11 last year. And extremely competitive. People fight for them. The price range is really wide here. You could be buying a 2-bedroom condo or a multi-million-dollar hillside home with bay views. So what does this actually cost? Russian Hill is almost entirely a condo market, as I said. 86 condos sold over the last 12 months, but 11 single-family homes. If you want a house here, be ready. Inventory is tight and competition is real. The condo median is 1,337 at $1,211 per square foot, which is very similar in price per square foot to Pacific Heights condos. However, the median price in Pacific Heights is $1.6 million. Russian Hill is ideal for buyers who want the full San Francisco experience, the architecture, the views, the history, the walkable neighborhood feel, and they're willing to pay for it. It's great for professionals working downtown or in the financial district, empty nesters who want a walkable urban lifestyle, and buyers for whom the character and their neighborhood genuinely matter. It's not going to be ideal if you want easy freeway access, flat terrain, or good street parking. Okay, I want to tell you why Russian Hill's always stayed with me. In the early 1990s, PBS aired the original Tales of the City, a racy, fun drama set in the 70s with Laura Linney. The whole story centered on 28 Barbary Lane, which is based on McCondray Lane in Russian Hill. I was young, new to San Francisco, and the city felt like this time capsule. I remember thinking San Francisco has been magical for 2 decades. And now here we are, it still is. The feeling is still there. McCondray Lane still exists, still looks almost exactly the same. Russian Hill still has that quality of being slightly outside of time. If you're moving to San Francisco for the first time and you want to understand what the city means to people who love it, Russian Hill is where I'd tell you to go. Every neighborhood we've covered so far has a Muni line, a famous street, or a commercial corridor. The last one has none of those things. And that is exactly why it's on the list. The center of the city is Mount Davidson, the highest peak in San Francisco. The neighborhoods around it are MIRALOMA Park on the east and these two very small neighborhoods, Westwood Highlands and Sherwood Forest to the southwest, which I would just lump into MIRALOMA for the sake of this conversation. When I say MIRALOMA Park to people home shopping in San Francisco, and I mean people who have done their research, who have spreadsheets, who have been on every real estate site, most of them have never heard of it. Honestly, before I was a realtor, I hadn't heard of it either. The reason nobody heard of it is simple. It doesn't have that famous street. It doesn't have a landmark. And it's tucked up in the hills in a way that most people just never really stumble across it. I'm preparing to move to Sherwood Forest, MIRALOMA's tiny little neighbor. I chose it for a very specific reason in my life, and I want to explain that. But first, let me tell you what you're actually getting here, and if you want the full neighborhood breakdown in writing, I put together a free San Francisco neighborhood guide. The link is in the description. Okay, back to MIRALOMA. MIRALOMA doesn't have direct Muni metro access, but it has reasonable connections to nearby bus routes in Forest Hill, West Portal, Glen Park, Balboa Park stations. It's especially appealing for people who drive south because access to 280 is better than in many more central parts of San Francisco. Okay, this is the honest part. MIRALOMA is not the neighborhood you're walking home from dinner from. There's a small commercial node at Teresita and Portola with a few neighborhood staples nearby. What MIRALOMA gives you instead of walkability is actually harder to find. Actual space. Houses with yards, houses without traffic, a neighborhood where you can hear birds in the morning. After years of urban San Francisco living, and I've done it, and I've loved it, there's something about that quiet that changes how you feel at the end of the day. MIRALOMA sits on the slopes of Mount Davidson, so yes, it's gonna get some fog. That said, it's nowhere near as socked in as the Sunset, but it's definitely not as warm as Mission Dolores. MIRALOMA is almost all single-family homes. That makes it genuinely rare for central San Francisco. Most of the housing was built in the 1920s through the 40s. My favorite streets have Bungalows, Mediterranean styles, Mission Revival, a lot of them have been nicely updated but still have their original character. There's also streets that were developed in the 50s and beyond. Those are nice too, in a different way. All the homes have garages that come with the house because of when they were built, and the streets are windy and hilly and they're just great to drive through. So what does it actually cost? The median single-family home in Miraloma Park over the last 12 months is $1.875 million. Detached house, real yard, garage in San Francisco proper. Okay, so this comes out to about $1,064 a square foot. The Sunset is $1,067 a square foot. And I take Miraloma over the Sunset any day, I'm sorry. Sorry to the people that love the Sunset, I love it too, just in a different way. Noe Valley is $1,400 a square foot. Miraloma is not Noe Valley, okay. But it is absolutely in the same city and not that far away. Almost entirely a single family home market, and there is housing stock that comes up. They did 47 sales of houses last year. Buyers getting priced out of Glen Park, Noe Valley, Eureka Valley, they're landing in Miraloma. Prices there have been climbing steadily for the last 3 years. Miraloma is great for buyers who are ready for a different chapter in San Francisco. They want a yard, they want a garage, they want a neighborhood where Saturday morning sounds like birds and not traffic. A place where you can actually hear yourself think. This is great for families and with kids of all ages. The neighborhood is for drivers. If you're a walker, it's gonna be tough. The honest flip side, if you wanna walk out your door into the energy of the city, Miraloma will feel way too quiet. If all of that sounds like a compromise, it isn't. It's just a different version of the city. I live in Mission Dolores right now and I love it. It was the right neighborhood for where I was in my life. Urban, walkable, vibrant, and in the middle of everything. And now I'm choosing the hills. A house, a yard, quiet mornings, dinner parties. That's not a retreat from San Francisco. That's just a different life. And that's the great thing about this city. You have great choices. Okay, now you really need to watch this next video where I talk about neighborhoods to avoid in San Francisco. And if you're relocating to San Francisco and you want to talk through where you actually fit, your budget, your lifestyle, that's exactly what I do. Reach out, my information is below. I'm Clay Jeffrey and I'll see you at the next video.